Hey, church family. There are a lot of valleys in the world with which we're familiar, but perhaps the most well-known valley to many of us is the one spoken of in Psalm 23, the one we refer to as the valley of the shadow of death. Whether you're in that valley today or not, I want you to consider with me 5 things that the author of this psalm, King David, tells us about valley experiences in life. Truth number 1, there will be valleys. Psalm 23 begins peacefully enough, but then in verse 4 it takes a sudden turn. The author writes, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death." Again, it's worth noting that David didn't write, "If I walk through the valley," but "yea, though," or "even though." In the same way that valleys are part of the natural landscape of the earth, so also valleys are part of the natural landscape of the Christian life. Truth number 2, there will be dark valleys. The valley of the shadow of death doesn't necessarily refer to the experience of dying or knowing someone who has died, although that certainly could be part of it. The idea is instead of experiencing life at its lowest and its darkest. Truth number 3, you can be fearless in the valley. As David said, "Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil." One of the reasons he could say this is because this was the valley of the shadow of death. And a shadow is just a shadow. It's not the thing itself. And because of this, he was able to walk through it without fear. Truth number 4, God is in the valleys. This is how you can make the same kind of statement of faith that David did. This is how you could say, "I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me." Notice something here. David has shifted from talking about God to talking to God. And we can learn from his example that the best things we can do as we go through the valley is to spend time in prayer. Truth number 5, valleys won't last forever. Again, it's worth noting that David said he was walking through the valley. God is not going to leave you in the valley. He wants to bring you through it. The psalm ends by telling us in verses 5 to 6, "You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever." If you're a follower of Jesus Christ, you need to remember that the valley is not your permanent destination. Heaven is. And if you're in a valley right now, recognize that the shepherd who led you to still waters and green pastures is also the one who's gone before you and will never forsake you when things get dark. In fact, did you know that Jesus himself experienced the valley of the shadow of death? We've been looking at it in our crossword series, particularly that word of abandonment. So when you call out to him from your valley, he can say, "I've been there. I'll walk with you and I'll give you my resources, and you'll be able to come out on the other end saying, 'My cup runs over.'" Amen.